Do you want to lose weight but struggle to stay committed to a meal plan because you constantly feel hungry? Does food provide you comfort when you are bored, angry, lonely, or sad? If so, you are in the right place. My name is Kristen Jones, and I'm a life coach specializing in emotional eating and weight loss, and I'm also a lifelong emotional eater. I want to provide you with information, motivation, and support so you too can learn to manage your issues with food and develop a healthy relationship with yourself. Welcome to the Breakthrough Emotional Eating Podcast. Welcome to the Breakthrough Emotional Eating Podcast. My name is Kristen Jones, and thank you so much for joining me again this week. Always appreciate when all of you come and listen to the podcast or are watching live in the group. We are live this week, as we always are, in the Breakthrough Emotional Eating Podcast on Facebook. If you are not a member of the group, you absolutely want to come and join us in what I think is one of the coolest communities that we have here on Facebook. Super supportive, tons of free stuff, lots of things for anyone who's interested in addressing issues with emotional eating, as well as addressing needing to lose weight. Because as I have talked about many times, weight loss and emotional eating and dieting, they just don't mix. It's like oil and water. They do not mix. And so it's really important to learn how to eat in order to lose weight, but also to get a handle on your emotional eating. So that is what we learn in this group, and that's what we practice, and that is what we support each other on. So really, really excited about the group. And if you are not a member, please join us. Go to www.facebook.com/groups/food breakthrough, and please come and be a part of our community. So each week on the podcast, I always will give a little shout out to a member or a client that is just doing exceptional things. And I have to say, there are two people in the group that I absolutely want to recognize. That is Cheryl Bacon and Crystal Kelly. And the two of them have separately yet at the same time, they have been taking the very the basic things that I teach in the group, and they've been using them. And Cheryl got very, very creative and created her own little sheet that she uses every morning. And I know Crystal has her own notebook that she uses to track her meals and to do her affirmations and to do her gratitude. And each one of them is just doing amazing things on their own. And I'm so impressed with their commitment to themselves, as well as sharing that and inspiring so many people in the group. And frankly, I'm overwhelmed and inspired by them just because they have really embraced the things that I teach, and they're using them, and they are seeing great, great results. So Cheryl and Crystal, thank you so much for your participation in the group. I'm honored to have you as members of the group, and just really love having you be a part of things, and again, inspiring other people. It makes such a huge difference. So thank you for your impact and your influence in the group. So really appreciate that. All right, what we are going to be talking about today. So the question is, are you afraid of hunger? Now, I know that, I got to say hi. So Diane, hello. Lori, hello. And Dawn. Hi, Dawn. Good to see you. I'm so happy we're going to be reuniting soon. It makes me very happy. So today, what we're going to talk about is hunger and what hunger means. So there's four things that we're going to be talking about. The first one is that hunger means different things to different people, and it manifests itself and it can impact people in very different ways. And so we're going to talk about that. Also, the one thing that I want people to remember is that hunger is merely a sensation in your body. It's a feeling, it's a sensation, and it is not something that we need to be afraid of. In fact, we need to really embrace it. So the third thing I'm going to talk about is what I like to call, I've done a whole podcast on the nerdy side of weight loss, and this is part of the nerdy side. And really the reason why we want to embrace hunger and we want to not be afraid of it, and we actually want it to happen, because when it's happening, there are good things happening in our bodies. That if we're looking to lose weight, that's an amazing thing. If we're also looking to not have um, cravings and not be craving certain foods, it's another good thing to have that happen. And then lastly, I really want to put a challenge out to everybody in the group and everybody who's listening on the podcast to take a different viewpoint. As we know here in the group, and if you've listened to the podcast before, you know that I am a big proponent of. Oh, hi, Laura. Hi, Judith. I'm a big proponent of our minds being the key to every change that we want to make in our lives, whether it's a physical change where we want to physically change our bodies, if we want to change jobs, if we want to change a relationship, if we want to improve our relationship with ourselves, it all starts between our ears. And so we really have to remember how powerful our minds are and really use our minds to our advantage and allow ourselves to be able to access its power and use it for good in our own lives. So, the first thing I want to talk about is again that hunger means different things to different people. So, depending on how you were raised and how, what kind of upbringing you had and how food was presented in your life and how you were um, how you were what you were taught about being hungry and what you were taught about food and the role that food had in your life. So I know for me, food had a very it was wonderful because I grew up in a family where and I've talked to a number of people this week, and I anybody who's from the South, I am always telling you, my Nana and Papa were from Oklahoma, and my nana was a phenomenal cook, and she kind of took my mom, who was her daughter-in-law, took my mom in really kind of under her wing and showed my mom how to cook. And my mom is a phenomenal cook, and my sister is as well. And I think I've mentioned before, my sister has a catering company, and so I food had a very positive, very embracing and inclusive was a very inclusive part of my upbringing. But it also was something that there were certain limitations and there were certain restrictions that were put on food in my house. And so being hungry to me represented being abandoned and being isolated and not being a part of things with everybody else, because in my home there were certain foods that were off limits to myself and to my siblings and to my mom, and those things, those foods, we weren't allowed to eat. Well, when you feel that way, when you have those restrictions and you feel that way, hunger becomes something that you want to avoid at all costs. And so I can remember always wanting to feel like when I would go to bed at night, I always felt like I needed to eat because it was like I was almost afraid that I wasn't going to make it through the night. I've since learned that that is not going to be a problem. But it triggered a lot of things in me that I felt like because I had been restricted, I always felt like whenever I had the opportunity to eat, I needed to eat as much as I could. And I know that it can also impact people who have had upbringings where food has not been readily available to them, where they have either been very poor, or maybe they left home and they were on their own and they were, a product of the street, and they were living on the streets. I have one person in mind that I'm thinking of that talked about how she oftentimes didn't know where her next meal was coming from, and that whenever, I mean, she had to steal food to be able to survive. And so anytime she was, she is now around food, it's like she eats as much as she can because she reverts back to that. This might be the last meal for a few days and I better eat as much as I can. So it was really, really, really important. Oh, I'm sorry, I digress. I see comments. Jamie, my podcast name is Breakthrough Emotional Eating. Breakthrough Emotional Eating. So that is what the name of the podcast is. You can find it on Stitcher, on Apple iTunes, or you can find it on Spotify. It's a bunch of different things. Um, so I saw that. I wanted to make sure I acknowledge that. So that can have a really huge impact on people. So again, hunger has different meanings to different people, and it elicits very different reactions. And so the next thing I want to talk about is the whole idea of how hunger can create feelings inside of us, not just the hunger itself, because that is a physical sensation, but that then can trigger emotional responses that we have that we're not really expecting, or we don't really know how to handle. And so we always have to remember that any feeling that we have in our bodies, whether it's a feeling, whether it's a sensation, sensations are usually physical in nature. So hunger is an actual physical sensation, but wanting to eat and eating when you're not hungry is a feeling, and that usually comes from a feeling. So when we talk about, when people start to feel hunger, there are many of you, and I'm actually going to ask you if this applies to you. If you are a person who absolutely will go out of their way to avoid being hungry, I just want you to put hunger in the comments. Just comment hunger if you want to avoid feeling hungry. So you are, anytime there's a little bitty something, something, you always have to stop and you have to eat something. So just put that if you are a person who feels compelled to do that. Now I know that many of you don't, and we're going to talk about what that means as well, to not that you want to avoid hunger, and or not avoid hunger, but you want to embrace hunger, and we'll talk about that as well. But it's really important to know that it's just a feeling, and that oftentimes we really want to avoid, when we're wanting to eat when we aren't hungry, or we're starting to feel hunger, we are really just trying to avoid those feelings, and there's a disconnect between how we're feeling physically and what that physical feeling is then manifesting within us emotionally. And so it's really important to recognize we do not need to be afraid of hunger. And if you do feel afraid of hunger, you have to understand that it's not the hunger that you're afraid of. It's what you have associated with it and where that association is. And so if you are a person who finds themselves constantly, like, always needing to have little snacks, always needing to eat something, if that's how you're kind of moving throughout your day, if you're a snacker and you're always kind of just picking different things, that is that's telling you something, that there's something that hunger is representing something else to you. It has another significant meaning to you, and it's important to really be able to kind of understand what that is, so then you can really directly address it and figure out what that is and why you're feeling that way. So one of the things that, again, that if you, again, seeing yourself and feeling that way, and wanting to avoid it, because we really should absolutely embrace hunger if we're trying to lose weight, and also if we're an emotional eater, and I'll explain to you why that is. One of the things that is, and we've talked about, and we're moving into the nerdy side here, the nerdy side of the podcast, and the nerdy side of weight loss. And so what we need to pay attention to is, we actually really want to embrace hunger, because if we're trying to lose weight, and we want to control our cravings, we really don't want our blood sugar to be going up and down all day long. One of the reasons why I ask, and if you're new, one of the reasons why I ask people, and I do say this quite frequently, and if you're new, you might not have heard this, but I always try to say, I'd like people to eat 3 meals a day. Now I know that some people are like, well, I only eat 2 meals. 2 meals is fine. 3 meals is fine. What we want to do is we want to have at least 4 to 6 hours between our meals, so we can allow our bodies to actually get a little bit hungry, and allow our bodies to start tapping into our fat cells. So when you eat, anytime you eat, protein, carb, fat, doesn't matter, your blood sugar is going to elevate. When your blood sugar elevates, your pancreas, it's very magical and it knows exactly what to do. It pours in insulin into your blood to bring your blood sugar levels down, brings your blood sugar levels back down. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. If our bodies are constantly getting food, blood sugar elevates, insulin comes in, lowers it back down. Our body, our blood sugar, or blood always has a level of insulin present in it. Unfortunately, insulin is a fat storing, is a fat storing hormone. And so what happens is, when we constantly have insulin in our systems, our bodies want to hold on to fat. It doesn't want to burn it. So the key is allowing your body to have your blood sugar levels stay nice and low. And when they stay nice and low, they stay nice and low when you're not eating. And so we really want to try to go 3 to 4 hours between each meal. And what that does is that allows blood sugar to stay low. When our blood sugar is not spiking up and down, we don't have cravings. We are less likely to be craving food when our blood sugar stays low. The reason why most people have sugar cravings or cravings for food is because their blood sugar gets elevated, then insulin gets put in, it comes back down, they get hungry again, goes back up. So there's this constant up and down that causes cravings for foods to actually get worse. And so it's better to go a longer period of time between your meals to not only lower the blood sugar, but also to lower the presence of cravings, as well as allowing your body to tap into fat cells. Now, what our bodies do is whenever we eat something, we always have three sources of energy when our body needs to move. The first one is readily available, and it's the food that you have eaten most recently. So your body uses whatever energy is there from the food that you've just eaten, or whenever you've eaten, uses that up. Use that up, it's gone. Your body's next resource is glycogen, which is stored in your muscles. You use that up, the next place that needs to go is fat cells. That's what we want. That's what we want most of the time. If we are trying to lose weight, you want that. And so you want to allow your body to tap into those fat cells. So we need to allow our bodies to go a little bit longer without food. Now, I'm not asking anybody to starve themselves. I'm not asking anybody to go, ridiculous and, go, long hours without food. If you're an intermittent faster, that's a totally different subject and it's a totally different topic for a different time. But if you are just 4 hours between meals, your body's going to tap into fat cells and you're going to use those and burn those off. Actually, the Kathy Reeves, you just asked a great question. How does this work for diabetes too? You have to keep track of your blood sugar, obviously, but for diabetics, it is actually a really good thing because it does keep your blood sugar at a low level. Diabetics always have to be careful of not letting their blood sugar go too low. And so for diabetics, it really has to be it's the practice of monitoring what you're eating as well as how long you're going between meals. But actually, I have spoken to a registered dietitian who had said that for most diabetics, going that 4 hours is a really good thing because, again, it allows the blood sugar to even out. And so you don't have those spikes. Always have to keep track of your blood sugar, though, when you are diabetic, with your monitor and taking readings just to make sure that your blood sugar is not dropping too low. But that is one of the reasons why we really want to embrace hunger is because it does allow us, it's really the true way that we do lose weight. But it also helps with the emotional eating because we don't have that blood sugar going up and down, just making us crazy in our bloodstream and really causing us to crave certain foods. So hunger is definitely not something that we need to be fearful of, and we don't need to try to shy away from it or cover it up by making sure that we're always eating something. So the last thing I want to talk about is just I really want to challenge everybody who's watching this and listening to really take a different viewpoint and a different thought pattern about hunger. Because as we know in this group, we understand our thoughts cause our feelings drive our actions, and our actions get us the results that we either want or don't want. And sometimes we don't want them and we get them anyway. So, our thoughts, if you think that hunger is a bad thing and you tell yourself that that is the worst thing, that can bring up all sorts of negative feelings and it scares you and you don't like it, then absolutely 100% you are not going to be able to go that 4 hours. You're not going to be able to allow yourself to tap into those fat cells. But if you encourage yourself, I'm not afraid of hunger. I want to embrace hunger. It's a good thing. I don't need to be afraid. I'm safe. I'm protected. All of those things. If you're telling yourself that, then you're going to be able to, again, access the fat cells that you need to do if you're looking to lose weight. But more importantly, you're going to keep your blood sugar even, and you're going to help control your emotional eating. So we have to take control of our brain. We have to decide that it's okay to feel a certain way. We can have that first thought of, oh, this is scary, but our second thought is the one that we get to control. Our first thought is our brain saying, oh yeah, no, we don't want that. Second thought is your own and your higher level thinking, and you can say, no, that's not, I don't need to be afraid of that. I don't need to be afraid of hunger. I need to embrace it. I need to be okay with it, and I need to allow myself, not only for my blood sugar, for the to avoid that up and down and those drastic changes that happen with our blood sugar when we eat. But we also just have to remind ourselves that we're safe, we're okay, we're an adult. Things that happened in our past, we can't live in our past. We have to be present, and we have to tell ourselves what we want, what goal we want to set, what goal we want to achieve, and then we can move towards achieving it. But we can't be afraid. We can't be feeding bad thoughts into our heads. We have to take control of our brains. We have to make sure that we are feeding our brains positivity as well as reality and what we want to think. We don't want to go down that negative path because, again, it's not going to serve us and it's not going to move us forward. So there you have it. Again, hunger, not to be feared, not to be avoided. It's we want to allow our bodies to rest. We don't need to be processing food all the time. We need to let our bodies rest. We need to let our bodies tap into fat cells. We need to keep that blood sugar low and in an even balanced way so we can avoid cravings. We can avoid having those fluctuations where we feel like we want to, eat our own arms off. We don't want to do that. So again, hunger is not something that we want to be fearful of. We want to embrace it. And then we want to, again, live our lives in a way that is very manageable and that works for us. And again, towards weight loss, towards emotional eating, hunger is not something that we need to avoid. All right. I hope this was helpful. I hope this helped everyone. Again, thank you so much. Oh, Cynthia, thank you so much. And I'm so happy. I appreciate you all being here. If you're listening on the podcast, if you are in the group, thanks for being here. Again, if you're on the podcast and you're not a member of the group, please come over Facebook, Breakthrough Emotional Eating, and join the group. Would love to have you. And again, never fear. Hunger is not something you need to be afraid of. All right. Hope everyone has a wonderful rest of this week and a wonderful weekend. And I will see you all next week. Take care. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. For more information on emotional eating and losing weight, please go to www.facebook.com/groups/food breakthrough and join the Breakthrough Emotional Eating community. I hope to see you soon.